Imagine being in the heart of Rome, knowing that there's a silent army made up of the deadliest men to ever walk under the shadow of imperial eagles. They are not just ordinary soldiers. They're the elite, handpicked to protect, manipulate, and if necessary, eliminate. But what makes these warriors so special? They were forged by a force that few would dare challenge: Julius Caesar. You've heard of the great legions, but what about the Praetorian cohorts? These men were not only on the battlefield but in the halls of power, in political intrigues, shaping the destiny of Rome in ways that even the most experienced generals could never imagine. And what if I told you that what began as a small personal guard transformed into the most influential force of the empire? The real question is, how did Caesar use these cohorts to secure his power and establish a legacy that no one could topple? Today, you will discover how Rome's elite soldiers, the Praetorian cohorts, not only protected but sculpted Roman power with blood, iron, and a loyalty that few understand. What you are about to see will change everything you think about power and the rise of Rome. When Julius Caesar began to consolidate his power, he realized that the Roman legions, although powerful, were not enough to secure his control over Rome and its interests. He needed a special force, a unit composed of the most loyal and skilled soldiers in the army, capable of acting both on the battlefield and in political intrigues. This is how the Praetorian Guard came into existence, initially conceived as a personal guard for the leader. This force was not only military, but also an extension of his political influence. The selection process for joining the Guard was extremely rigorous. It wasn't enough to be a skilled soldier. One had to have unwavering loyalty and a deep understanding of the political dynamics of Rome. These men were handpicked based on criteria that went beyond physical strength. They needed to be strategic, disciplined, and above all, willing to protect Caesar at any cost. As a result, the Praetorian Guard soon became a feared and respected force, operating on multiple fronts. These soldiers were not only present on the battlefield, they had a crucial role in Rome to ensure that order was maintained, both in the streets and in the corridors of power. In a city filled with conspiracies and betrayals, the Praetorians operated in the shadows, protecting not only Caesar's life, but also his legacy and political ambitions. Their influence grew rapidly, and they soon became essential pieces in maintaining control over the empire. The presence of the Praetorians in Caesar's daily life also had a psychological effect on his opponents. Knowing that he was surrounded by Rome's most lethal and loyal soldiers deterred many conspiracy attempts. These men were more than just protectors. They were a symbol of the power Caesar held over the city and the empire. Thus, the Praetorian Guard became not only a military arm, but also a political force capable of shaping the destiny of Rome. Under Caesar's leadership, the Praetorian Guard began to gain prominence and respect not only among soldiers, but also among politicians. Their loyalty was unquestionable, placing them in a unique position in Rome's complex power game. They were not just another military unit. They embodied Caesar's will, able to protect and execute his desires with lethal precision. Initially, the Praetorian Guard had a well-defined role: to protect the life and interests of Julius Caesar. This included ensuring his personal safety in times of war and peace, but also, in a more subtle way, ensuring that his political influence remained intact. Rome was a stage of intrigues and betrayals, and the constant presence of an elite guard heightened the perception of power that Caesar projected. These soldiers were not seen merely as warriors, but as living symbols of the Roman leader's unquestionable authority. The actions of the Praetorian Guard went far beyond typical bodyguard duties. In times of crisis or internal disputes, they served as a silent line of defense, operating in the shadows to eliminate threats before they even materialized. Their closeness to the emperor allowed them to be the first to detect conspiracies and intrigues, making them an essential tool in maintaining the balance of power in Rome. Their presence intimidated not only external enemies, but also internal ones, especially those who dared to challenge Caesar's authority. These soldiers were strategically positioned to act on Caesar's behalf across various fronts. On the battlefield, they fought alongside the legions, but it was in the city that their true power was felt. They could manipulate the populace and intervene directly in political matters, always backed by Caesar. Thus, the Praetorian Guard became a bridge between military and political power, ensuring that control over Rome was absolute and unquestionable. The efficiency and speed with which the Praetorian Guard acted in times of crisis solidified their reputation as an elite force. Sometimes, the mere rumor of their presence was enough to deter conspiracies and rebellions. They operated in a gray area where brute force and political cunning intersected. They were executors and strategists, capable of intervening with either violence or subtlety, depending on what the situation required. The loyalty of the Praetorian Guard was what kept Caesar in power, especially during the most delicate moments of his reign. By ensuring that he was protected from all sides, not only in the streets of Rome, but also behind the scenes of the Senate, they allowed Caesar to govern with confidence and, often, with a boldness that few would dare to display in a city as volatile as Rome. The Praetorian Guard was not only known for their loyalty to Caesar, but also for their extreme combat skills. These soldiers were selected from the best of the Roman legions, and their training was relentless. Unlike regular soldiers, who followed a preparation routine focused on the battlefield, the Praetorians were trained for any situation, from direct confrontation to the defense of a life in urban settings. Their versatility and military discipline made them a force feared by all who dared to challenge them. The training of the Praetorian Guard involved not only hand-to-hand combat techniques, but also a strong emphasis on tactical formation and group coordination. Each Praetorian knew that alongside their brothers in arms, they formed an indestructible unit. Their formations were rigid, moving with surgical precision, and each of them understood their role in combat. Mutual trust and the ability to act in coordination transformed the Praetorians into a true war machine, highly effective and feared by all who faced them. In addition to physical preparation, there was also intensive mental training. These men needed to be ready to confront not only external threats, but also the internal pressures that came from their political and military roles. They had to be capable of reading their surroundings, interpreting complex situations, and acting decisively. The coolness and mental clarity of the Praetorians were among the factors that set them apart from other troops. They were trained to make decisions in critical moments with the same ease with which they wielded their swords. The Praetorians were not only well-trained soldiers, they were also extremely disciplined. The loyalty they pledged to the emperor allowed for no disobedience or hesitation. This discipline extended to the way they conducted their operations, always keeping their focus on the mission, whether it was to protect Caesar or eliminate a potential threat. Their dedication to order and hierarchy made them relentless. Once assigned to a task, nothing diverted them from their ultimate goal. The reputation of the Praetorian Guard as elite soldiers did not come solely from their combat skills, but from their ability to resolve any type of situation, whether on the battlefield, in the corridors of power, or in the bustling streets of Rome. They were the embodiment of Roman strength, a constant reminder that Caesar's power was everywhere, ready to act with speed and precision against any threat. Although the Praetorian Guard was known for its military skills, it was in the political arena that they demonstrated their true power. Over time, they became central figures in the intrigues that shaped the fate of Rome. Operating in both open and covert missions, the Praetorians served as the executor of Caesar's interests, dealing with internal threats and manipulating the balance of power behind the scenes. Their closeness to the emperor and the influence they wielded over political figures of the time ensured they were at the heart of the most crucial decisions. The Praetorians were often called upon to intervene in critical moments, such as during senatorial conspiracies or internal rebellions. Sometimes, the mere threat of their intervention was enough to change the course of a political dispute. Their unquestionable loyalty to the emperor also made them instruments of purging, removing adversaries who could threaten the stability of power in Rome. This ability to act in the shadows with force and speed made few dare to challenge Caesar and his rule. In addition to eliminating enemies, the Praetorians were used to intimidate. Their constant presence at the city's most important political events served as a silent reminder of who truly held the power. Many senators and public figures began to measure their words and actions, aware that a misstep could place them in the sights of the Praetorians. It was a form of psychological control that reinforced Caesar's authority without the need for direct violence. However, this involvement in political plots was not always straightforward. The Praetorian Guard began to amass their own power and influence, making their political maneuvering as strategic as their military actions. Over the years, it became clear that the support of the Praetorians could mean the difference between an emperor's rise or fall. They became silent arbiters of Rome's destiny, sometimes acting on Caesar's behalf, but at other times pursuing their own interests. By being so immersed in the political intrigues of Rome, the Praetorians ceased to be merely a military guard and began to operate as agents of influence, manipulating the gears of power in their favor. Their role in the twists and turns of the empire continued to grow, making it impossible to ignore the importance of these cohorts in the rise and fall of many leaders throughout Roman history.